Hey everybody, this is a video overview of this knife, the Spyderco Zulu, and I'm making a video overview in part because I'm going to try to do more videos now that I have a better camera, but also because this knife is very, very difficult to explain in words. It's very difficult to explain in a review, a written review. And so this knife here is the Spyderco Zulu. It is a production version made in Taichung, Taiwan, of a knife designed by Jens Ansu, who is a Danish designer. He designed, or at least collaborated on the design for the Pingo, he designed the Rock Lobster, and he designed this knife, the Zulu. In addition to that, he's designed knives for fox cutlery, and he designed knives, a bunch of knives for Boker. One of the things that's so interesting about this knife, in addition to the fact that it has the Ansu pattern on the handle scales, and the fact that it has a remarkably good fit and finish, the Taichung, Taiwan factory makes just amazing knives, but is the handle shape. And going through and using this knife, I have learned that the knife is best seen, best understood when you're using it. And so one of the things that's really interesting is that the cutting surface, so this is like a board I have in my shop, and most knives, they have this portion of the knife, this portion right here, sort of like the curve, the belly. But with the Zulu, you get cutting action like this. And so when you're cutting material or an object or something, you're cutting like at this angle, and you can cut and slice much more precisely that way. The funny thing is, you look at this knife, you just think that it has a deep belly, but what you don't actually realize until you start cutting, because this is what cutting is, like very rarely are we cutting things like, here's an old Buck Odyssey that I have, and it has a, we cut things like this, we try to slice them, but our hands naturally put us in a position like this, where you're standing up, and the hand is angled down, and you're cutting with the knife. It's a much more unnatural motion to be cutting at this angle from standing up than it is from that angle. And so that little subtlety is something that you might miss unless you really start using the knife. And I have started using this knife. The steel is CPM S30V, which is a pretty standard steel on nicer production knives. It's a great steel. I mean, even though it's been superseded by other steels like S35VN and steels like that, it's still a really good steel. I mean, it holds an excellent edge. It's very corrosion resistant. It's not great to sharpen, but it's also not impossible to sharpen. I really do like this knife. The other thing that's so interesting about this knife is that there are so many different ways to use and hold this knife. So you can hold this knife in the cutting position, like when you're slicing. And this little divot in the spine is very good for your finger. It helps you do like roll cuts. The other way to hold this knife is that if you're doing like whittling cuts or push cuts, you can get a good grip with your thumb here and sort of push cut like that, so that you have a little extra leverage and get nice and tight. You can also hold the knife in the normal position, so that's 3. And then you can hold the knife in a position where your finger kind of goes into that access point, the little divot cut out for the finger hole. Because it's a pistol grip knife, you can get a really good, and you can do some good push cutting there, like that. A little bit of stabbing. So that's 4. The other way that I found that you could hold the knife, in addition to the 4 that I've shown you, is that you can actually hold it in sort of like a chopping action, where you basically hold it way down at the bottom, and you can slice cut, or chop cut like that, and you can get much more leverage because the whole thing is way out there. It's like why you hold a hammer down at the bottom instead of choked up. And then finally, you have a really excellent knife for a reverse cut. You don't use a reverse cut a whole lot, but this knife in reverse cut works really well. It kind of just lays in your hand, as you can see, and then it goes across. So again, this knife is one of those knives that's really hard to describe in words, but it's not that much more. But it's not very complicated to describe in action. You can see how it works much easier than you can talk about how it works. And I will concede to a lot of people that this knife does not look like other knives. It is very different. It has a big spider hole. It has sort of a thick, fat butt. It has a very thin spine in the, or thin blade in the middle, and then a fat blade towards the end. But all of this is done for a reason. It's not just sort of mindless weirdo for the sake of weirdo. You can see in there that the liner is skeletonized. I think it's 3.4 ounces, and it's a pretty good size knife in your pocket because it's quite wide, as you can see. Look, the Zippo is just about as wide as that knife. It's a really wide knife. It has a chrome metal black pocket clip, the spoon clip, which I really like. It opens. It just opens like a dream. I mean, you can, in a second, put it behind the camera. There we go. You can just pop this thing open, no problem. I do have to say, this is my first Spyderco liner lock, and they do a great job on their liner locks. There's no blade play in any direction, side to side, up or down, and the detent on the blade, you'll see right there. The detent is quite nice. And you can, of course, do the spider drop, because this knife is really, really heavy. And so that's the Spyderco Zulu. My written review will be coming soon, and I'm trying to get the camera to focus. There you go. My written review will be coming soon, but I just wanted to give you a brief overview before I get to put that up. So be looking for the video review at everydaycommentary.com.